Okay, so my conversation today is principally formed out of what I've been doing for the last 10 years of my life. You know, I'm part of an early stage venture fund where we basically invested in 21 startups since 2013, and also ran an innovation consultancy that got acquired by IBM. And what my day was always in the morning talking to founders, active management, helping them, in the afternoon talking to executives and CEOs. And it kind of this dichotomy existed between the two worlds. Fast forward, my company was acquired by IBM, and the conversation I want to bring to you today is just more about my personal thoughts about where the world's going to go. I'm going to take you through today, what exists today in terms of the two, what we probably presume diametric views of existence between a startup and a corporate. I'm going to talk to you about the characteristics of what's coming in terms of disruption that's going to really change both of their environments, and there's horizons of disruptions and what it means for them. What this new enterprise looks like for both of them. What are those key attributes? We're going to look at, in that context, what are the new roles? Like, what's this world going to look like as a part of that? Okay, let's get started. So there's probably, there's a set of characteristics, and I'll sort of play this out. These are the main characteristics which define, the enterprise and startups. The first three is pretty straightforward. If you look to the right, it's the startup. The idea is purpose. Startups have, a deep sense of purpose. It's almost like a religion. It's a belief that they're going to change the world, whether it be a small part of the world that's changed or a distortion reality field. Regardless, people are buying into that idea of making change, making a difference. You flip to the corporate, it's the context of my job. I'm just going to do what I've got to do and do what I do well. Mastery, you're looking at, in the context of a startup, you're learning, you're teaching and being taught in the context of solving a problem. It's just continual. You're just failing fast, you're iterating, you keep pivoting, you keep changing. You want to get to product market fit before the money runs out. Your eyes are wide open as you go through that. You actually, usually 62% of startups fail in the trough of despair because they weren't able to learn quick enough. Just a side note. On the other side of the equation, you've got the corporate. My mastery is, how do I get the promotion? How do I level up or level to the side or level out? And that's really the context of how you operate. In terms of autonomy, you get the space to succeed. You get the space to fail fast and succeed in a startup. The autonomy in the corporate environment is very much limited to what I've got to do to get by. And usually it's not even limited to my department nor my role. Usually there's competing factors in that. Those first three is the fundamental intrinsic motivators of humans. Daniel Pink wrote a book about it called Drive, and you can see very quickly which one's more motivating for us as people. We get down to the next set, funding, technology, customers, and asset. These are basically the things that underpin the two differences in environment. For example, the funding. In startup world, the idea is, I like your idea, I like the people, I like the idea, here's some capital, create value over time, and you'll get follow-on capital, and your valuations just keep growing. Versus at corporate where, business case 5 or 10%, and generally speaking, you probably won't even get the money, or you may get the money. So quite a different dynamic. One, you get the money in a corporate, everyone forgets about you, and you don't get any active management until a year later, the tenure effect. Tech is by far the biggest one. That's the one that's going to change really rapidly over the next 3 to 5 years. I don't know if you've heard the expression smashing into the BAU bus in terms of corporate environment. One of the single biggest, there's two characteristics really arrest a corporate into adopting the characteristics of a startup. And it's this idea, it's basically the legacy technology and the way in which the plumbing is wired. And it doesn't matter how novel or inventive you may be in your various departments, at the end of the day, you've got to bring it back into the slowest moving part of your whole organization. Whereas startups, by any means necessary, I'll use cloud first, cloud only. I'll use whatever's available to prove that value, to get that money, to move up and into scaling into the next part of what I exist. And here's where it switches. For a large corporate, huge amount of distribution, a huge amount of customers, huge market share, huge market power, huge influence. For a startup, small product market fit, you've got to try and get some customers. Growth is everything that you do. Corporate, huge assets, huge access to relationships and assets and a huge amount of influence, and the assets for a startup are small. What is that resultant? It's a culture. One culture is about pay it forward, collaborations, and the other culture is very much seeking my advantage and probably coming from a place of, like protection, if you like. What I'm going to talk to you today is I'm going to show you that tech and the customers, fundamentally, or humans, are about to create a seismic shift in these people's worlds. Okay, so before I get into that, I'm just going to outline the first reason, which is this concept of the waves of disruption that are about to hit us. And I'll start with 4, and I'll take the optic of an enterprise. Basically, the statement we're making here is you can't operate in Horizon 1. And what Horizon 1 is, today's business. Today's business, you've got your known levers, you've got your existing product, and you tune it, and you know what you're doing. And you'll try and find optimizations. Everything's known. Your problems are known, your solutions are known. You're just trying to move the organization and its agility to try and adopt a way of tuning for performance. Then in a corporate sense, Horizon 2 is core adjacency. How do I leverage that balance sheet I got? How do I leverage this customer base that I got and create new products and services? And some corporates, like Qantas, for example, will go and look at, to extend its loyalty portfolio, build a health insurance product, and just build this ecosystem of other services, core adjacent services around the power and influence it's got. Horizon 3 is actually, let's attack our balance sheet from a corporate perspective. Let's look at disruptive business models. Let's look at completely different ways of, creating value in the future before someone else does it to us. Let's innovator's dilemma. Let's not have that occur. Let's look at completely different ways in which we can disrupt ourselves. And you're seeing blockchain start to do that in terms of large consortiums, for example, shipping and so forth, bringing that all together. And the last one's applied research. And this is what's actually driving the change in all the horizons, which is, for example, as blockchain comes out of the pure research and it's being applied into the different industries, or quantum probability computing, that will fundamentally change everything across all horizons. And the point to this slide from a corporate perspective is it's not good enough to just live in Horizon 1 anymore. And you're seeing corporates start to look at how they could operate in the other horizons. The problem is they can't, as we've described on the previous page, because their organizational speed is, if you baseline it, is 1 times. But for return on capital, you've got to be able to operate 4 times the speed for adjacent opportunities, having a known environment and new solutions you want to create. And then 10 times, which is what startups operate. VCs will not invest in a startup unless they believe that they're performing at 10 times growth in the marketplace, through to 16 times, which is applied research. So you're seeing corporates start to collaborate with startups. You're seeing, only the other day, yesterday, there was X15, where CBA is building this sandpit of association with startups. And you're seeing, them looking for either tech tuckings or distribution partnerships with startups and so forth. So many different models. But the real point here is startups also have to look at this and say, who are we as an organization? Are we looking for a category-defining Horizon 3? Or are we just a tech tuck-in that's going to look at, an area of the ecosystem where we can create value, like Harrison AI, which is looking specifically at in vitro fertilization, taking it from what exists today as a normal practice from 65% accuracy in terms of predictability up to 85 or 90%. At the end of the day, capital's the same. It doesn't care. It just wants a return on itself. And so as these technological disruptions come through these horizons, it doesn't really matter if you're a startup or if you're a corporate. Any organization must operate at the same time across these 4 horizons, either directly in itself or through association and relationship in a connected network. Okay, so the next one is, what does this future organization look like? Future organization looks basically like it's got AI everywhere. It has these prediction machines or judgment machines all the way through the stack. It has from the way in which we design your experiences, the way in which we use tooling to create those experiences. This concept, which I'm going to talk a bit more about, around intelligent workflows and how they, while I sleep, my agent, my Tamagotchi, works for me, and data. So this all starts to come in place we're seeing now the cloud start to become pervasive across not only existing organizations and startups, but across the broader ecosystem. That's, we're talking about current organizations running at 20% their existing business. Their data is still protected and not using it, leveraging it. And it's anticipated over the next 10 years that'll be 100% in cloud. Okay, so what ends up happening is you have this concept of intelligent workflows. Intelligent workflows are this idea that actually with these disruptive technologies coming together, you're building these completely new ecosystems. And we heard about collaborations in the prior session. And it's this idea that actually these completely new ecosystems are going to form. And they'll form on the basis of mutual value. And the mutual value may be in terms of brand identity, it may be around data sharing, it may be around commerce, or it may be around community. But this is my personal statement. You can see these ecosystems principally being less than 10 really powerful ecosystems forming, where my ability to either capture customers, own them directly, or provide almost at a very low cost using robotics and AI, my products and services into those environments as a future state. And the way we connect with partnerships, whether they be startups or other corporates, is via these intelligent workflows. Excuse me. We're starting to see this now. We're starting to see, as AI becomes more pervasive and machine learning becomes more pervasive, people are building completely big, robots are building robots where in the past, a robot would be able to measure and manage the degree of automation and other robots performing. So you can see very quickly, where you have these departmental silos and your customer experience being completely broken, automation coming in, actually providing you the answer at the right time for that organization. Evolving that to a data sharing arrangement between a bunch of different ecosystem partners where completely new products and services are getting created, new businesses are getting created on the back of that ecosystem. To help you sort of crystallize what an ecosystem may look like, look at WeChat. Now, it's got a regulated framework which allows it to exist, to be created and exist. But you've got 1.x million Chinese that do all of their commerce, principally Chinese, do all their commerce, content, and community via a single super app. Everything's connected via this experience, and there's about 100 million phones that only have one app on their phone, and a person's entire existence is through that app. Now, that's done through regulation, but you can actually see this as a model as you move through the future. We have these pervasive, powerful ecosystems that form. Okay, so I'll go to the next slide and I'll sort of build up. So I've talked about technology driving this cognitive enterprise, driving these new ecosystems that are going to form, driving this new amount of value that's traded between the participating partners. But the other really, really big thing that's going to drive the change is the human side of this. And let's not sort of dismiss this idea that we're in probably an awkward stage of social media and the internet in terms of humanity and the way in which we connect our lives into each other. But we can see very quickly that humanity in itself is looking for a better use of the tools, a better use of the way I exist at home, the way I exist at work, the way we exist as people. And this will be the other driving force to defining the way in which ecosystems are forming. And the idea around this is you can see that the type of skills, and there were a bunch of creatives in the room, there's good news at the end of this, there's a bunch of skills that are coming through rapidly now as being vital, existential if you like, to a company's formation of what they're going to be in the future. And the skills are relating around what we call the mind sciences. Your neuroscientists, your behavioral scientists, psychologists, sociologists, anthropologists. These are people who are still trying to work out we as people, still trying to work out how AI or algorithms can act like we should act, if you like, in terms of ethics and so forth. So that'll be the next big driver to the idea of these powerful ecosystems and value being created. And where you end up is basically you either own the customer and its relationship and intimacy with that because you're trusted, or you have a machine that provide your service, whether it be robots creating and AI delivering via an ecosystem, really efficiently your products and services. So you can see the value of understanding the humans and the customer, and the value of getting really efficient in the way we do things is probably the two areas of focus of this cognitive enterprise. And I think one of the key areas of all of this is trust. So as the innovators come through and they start to demonstrate new models that show a new degree of assurance, think blockchain, and a higher degree of trust, you're going to see seismic shifts in the way in which we engage socially, online, and so forth. Okay, so where do we end up? And it's kind of interesting if you think about the mind in itself. We end up in an environment where the machines are doing a lot of the procedural stuff. The robots are doing all the procedural labor. So stuff that fundamentally we as humans don't want to do, but they will start to do it. AI will start to do all of the procedural knowledge work, and that is some high value. You can see neurosurgery, brain surgery could possibly be better done by a robot than a human. Shaky hands and so forth. So if we take those out, what are we left with? We're left with this uber efficient machine that we've created with a huge amount of live data that's passing through it from our partnerships and our ecosystem. And we're able, through that data in real time, start to decide, sense, interpret, and decide and act on what we're going to do next, whether the machine does it or we as workers start to do it as well. So if you extrapolate that into today's thought, what I'm basically saying is we're moving towards an organization that fundamentally mimics the mind. So the type of things that we still yet to explore and understand is the mind itself. So creativity, humanity, the mind sciences will become kind of the key roles of this new cognitive enterprise as we go forward. And the title just for the fun of it, the title we use is the Chief Mind Officer. If you think of Chief Customer Officer, we're starting to move towards this centricity, and data's starting to increase. We're moving into a higher degree of fidelity of the person, the people. The next level is to start to understand the mind and the relationships with it. And the last slide, just to lift it up a bit, we're nowhere near that yet. There's plenty to do in the meantime, but it will start to happen fairly quickly, every organisation. And just to show you how far away we are, and it's always in terms of singularity and this idea of this existence, as a good dinner party trick, you just always ask someone, pretend I'm an AI, you got a program or person with limited cognitive ability. I'll give you 10 seconds to explain what love is. And you can be certain that you'll get a different response from everyone on the table and everyone around you. And I think we do have a long way to go, but this is, in terms of where technology will take us, a happy ending. Thank you.